In 1994, the German military adopted one of the most overbuilt pistols engineered, then ordered the company to make it worse. The safety was reversed. The advanced rifling stripped out, not for performance, so armorers could keep using old cleaning kits. If you carry an HK USP, you know the number. 297,000 rounds. What is harder is explaining what that number bought you, holstered on a hip that will never come close to it. Federal armorers who ran the Homeland Security trials trusted this platform under conditions no civilian will ever recreate. The lie was never in the marketing. It starts with a shadow cast by a gun most owners have never fired. There is a specific kind of pride that comes from owning a gun that shares a bloodline with something elite. The Heckler & Koch USP carries that pride better than almost any pistol on the market, because for 30 years, owners have quietly let themselves believe they are one design step removed from the Mark 23, the hand cannon built for United States Special Operations Command. The two platforms really were engineered side by side in the early 1990s, sharing data and innovations as Heckler & Koch built both at once. That much is true. What is not true is what people did with that fact. The USP became the accessible cousin of a legend, and legends are contagious. If part of why this gun feels serious to you is the sense that you're carrying something close to what special operators carried, that feeling is worth a second look before you carry it another day. The pistol itself does nothing to discourage the comparison. That oversized polymer block fills the hand with the kind of authority that feels institutional before you fired a single round. Real mass sits in the slide, not just the reputation. None of that is manufactured confidence. The engineering is genuine. That said, genuine engineering and inherited mission are not the same thing. The Mark 23 answered to a command structure most owners will never serve under. The USP answered to a sporting goods counter. It is not the gun in your holster. It never was. Sharing a drafting table is not the same as sharing a mission. The mythology had to start somewhere. It started here, with a resemblance mistaken for a relationship. The pride the USP borrows from special operations mythology is at least understandable. A shared bloodline is a real thing, even a distant one. What the Bundeswehr did to its own service pistol is harder to romanticize. In 1994, the German military selected the P8 variant of the USP for general issue. Then it did something almost nobody expects. It ordered Heckler & Koch to reverse the direction of the manual safety lever so it would operate the way the outgoing Walther P1s did. It rejected the modern polygonal rifling the USP was engineered with in favor of older, standard-cut rifling, not because it performed better, but because armorers already owned cleaning kits built for the old gun. If part of your trust in this gun rests on the fact that a national military adopted it, you should know that adoption and endorsement are not the same signature. A soldier's thumb sweeping a reversed safety lever feels no different to him than it did on the rifle he trained on for a decade. That was exactly the design intent. The shallow bite of standard rifling grooves does not announce itself as a compromise. It just quietly is one. There are real trade-offs here, and they were not hidden. They were written into the procurement contract. The Bundeswehr got a pistol it could support with existing infrastructure. What it did not get was the gun Heckler & Koch actually designed. Institutions do not adopt weapons because they are the best tool available. They adopt weapons that fit the supply chain they already have. That distinction does not disappear just because it is inconvenient to the story. Setting the institutional compromise of the P8 aside, there is something in the USP that owes nothing to bureaucracy. Buried in the frame is a dual-spring buffer system, patented under U.S. Patent 5,309,815, designed to progressively transmit recoil force into the polymer frame instead of letting it slam through in one violent stroke. Shooters describe it as a double-stage give. A dense, layered resistance felt through the frame rather than a sharp jolt through the wrist. That sensation is not marketing language, and it is not something you can fake with a lighter recoil spring. It is the patent working exactly as designed, absorbing punishment. The frame was never expected to survive in a single lifetime of ordinary use. That buffer does not care whether you shoot the gun once a year or several times a week. It behaves exactly the same either way, which is part of why the mythology around it grew so large in the first place. If you've told yourself the recoil feels different because the engineering is superior, you're right. The harder question is whether superior for what? The buffer exists to keep a polymer frame from cracking under sustained, high-volume institutional testing, magazine after magazine, day after day, at a pace almost no civilian shooter will ever approach. It is real. It is patented. Exactly as designed, it works. What it was designed for, though, was never your hand. It was a stress test involving conditions almost nobody in this audience will ever come close to running. Every part of that buffer exists because of a laboratory, not because of you. That laboratory obsession is exactly where the platform's most famous number comes from. Every serious HK USP owner knows it by heart. American Handgunner has reported that a commercial USP-45, run by Federal Premium Ammunition as a dedicated terminal testing platform, survived 297,000 rounds with nothing but routine recoil spring replacements. It has been repeated in forums, in comment sections, in arguments about which pistol deserves to be called the most durable ever built. The number is not fabricated. It is not exaggerated. It is also not yours. If that number is the reason you feel safe carrying this gun, ask yourself honestly how many rounds you've actually put through it, and whether the gap between those two numbers is where your real confidence should live. A civilian carrying for personal protection will likely fire somewhere between 500 and a few thousand rounds across the gun's entire service life. The spring that took a permanent set after Federal's test never had to survive anything close to civilian neglect. It survived deliberate, sustained, industrial-scale punishment, run by people paid to find the breaking point rather than avoid it, on a schedule no civilian owner would ever choose to keep. That said, none of this makes the test meaningless. It proves something real about the platform's engineering ceiling. What it does not prove is that the ceiling has anything to do with the floor most owners actually live on. 297,000 rounds is a real number from a real test run by people with no reason to inflate it. What it measures is a laboratory's patience. What it does not measure is yours. Not every number about this platform deserves skepticism. In 2004, the Department of Homeland Security put 690 handguns through a trial that consumed more than 3 million rounds over 4 months. Heckler & Koch's submission came out the other side with a superior technical rating and a contract with a potential value of $26.2 million. The contract covered the USP Compact, the P2000, and the P2000 SK, spanning 9mm 40 Smith & Wesson and 357 SIG chamberings across 3 distinct pistol platforms. This is not a forum legend. It is not a number repeated because it feels good to repeat. It is a documented federal evaluation run by people with every incentive to disqualify a platform that could not perform across a testing volume that dwarfs even the celebrated Federal Premium Endurance Run. The number that should carry weight in your decision was never the one repeated in forums. It was the one nobody bothered to make into a legend. Paperwork rarely trends on social media. It rarely gets repeated in a comment section either. It just quietly outperforms the story that does year after year without asking for credit. 3 million rounds spread across 690 guns is harder to romanticize than 297,000 rounds through one. It does not fit as neatly into a single sentence you can post in a comment section, and that is exactly why it gets ignored in favor of the flashier figure. The federal test earned trust. The 3 million round trial earned belief. Those two words are not interchangeable, and the difference is the entire point of this video. That same institutional record that validated the USP's durability is about to complicate a different piece of its reputation. Mastering a hard trigger carries its own kind of pride. The traditional double-action, single-action pull on a variant. One USP is long, heavy, and stacks noticeably before it breaks, often requiring somewhere near 12 pounds of force on the first shot. Serious shooters treat learning that pull as a rite of passage, something separating the disciplined from the impatient. Heckler & Koch did not see it that way. In 1997, an engineer named Helmut Weldley led the development of the law enforcement modification trigger, a pre-cocked, consistent double-action-only system built specifically to eliminate the long, stacking pull. Factory development samples of the USP-40 compact LEM fired 15,575 rounds each without a single malfunction or broken part. By the year 2000, the Immigration and Naturalization Service had purchased 4,000 of them for agents working plainclothes assignments. Federal agencies did not adopt the LEM because it felt modern. They adopted it because the original trigger had become a documented liability under stress, not a badge of competence. If you spent years treating that heavy double-action pull as proof of your own discipline, it's worth knowing the company that built it spent real money trying to take it away from you. To be fair, plenty of shooters still prefer the traditional trigger, and there is nothing wrong with that preference on its own terms. But preference and necessity are different claims. Heckler & Koch's own engineering department settled the necessity question decades ago. You do not need to master a flaw the manufacturer already admitted to. Discipline is not the same thing as defending a design decision. The factory itself walked back. The company that quietly corrected its own trigger gets far less credit for something it never actually got wrong. Search any forum thread about the USP's accessory rail long enough and you'll find the same accusation, that Heckler & Koch refused to adopt the industry standard rail out of stubbornness or pride or some vague German engineering arrogance. It's a satisfying story. It is also missing a date. The USP was introduced in 1993 with its proprietary rail molded directly into the dust cover, that M1913 Picatinny rail. The standard the USP supposedly refused to adopt was not standardized until 2 years later. The accusation has the sequence backwards, and it has had that sequence backwards for a long time without anyone bothering to check. If you've ever repeated the claim that this rail was German stubbornness, you repeated a story instead of checking a date. The rail was not a refusal. It was an early attempt at solving a problem that did not yet have an agreed-upon answer. That does not mean the rail aged gracefully. It requires bulky, expensive aftermarket adapters to run modern lights or lasers, and that cost is real and worth factoring into ownership. A modern weapon light that mounts natively on a Picatinny railed pistol can require a $40 to $60 proprietary adapter just to fit the USP's dust cover, a cost most buyers never anticipate until they're already standing at the counter. Calling the rail arrogant requires forgetting that it existed before the thing it supposedly refused to copy. That is a company that guessed early and got outpaced by a standard it helped create the need for. The criticism exists for a reason. Set the mythology and the institutional data aside for a moment, and the HK USP has real, mechanically grounded flaws that no amount of engineering pedigree resolves. The grip is flat and squared rather than contoured, filling the hand with a blocky, deliberate mass that modern shooters, trained on the low-slung profiles of striker-fired pistols, often describe as fighting them instead of settling into them. The slide sits noticeably higher above the hand than most contemporary platforms, raising the bore axis and adding perceptible muzzle rise that has to be actively managed rather than absorbed. None of that is imagined. It shows up on a timer, run after run. Then there is the size. The USP was built in an era less obsessed with daily concealment, and it shows, printing under a cover garment in a way that thinner, lighter platforms simply do not. Even the compact variants carry noticeably more bulk at the belt line than their striker-fired competitors. Add in factory magazines priced well above what most modern polymer pistols charge, and the ownership cost quietly climbs long after the purchase receipt. If you've made peace with carrying something that doesn't quite fit your hand or your daily rotation because the mythology made the trade-off feel worth it, this is the section that asks you to weigh that honestly, without the number to lean on, an engineered gun can still be the wrong shape for your hand. That is not mythology. That is just honest. And in a market built on hype, honesty is rarer than good engineering. None of the facts in this video were ever the lie. The Bundeswehr really did compromise its own pistol for logistics. The DHS trial really did run 3 million rounds. And the federal premium test really did survive 297,000 of them. Heckler & Koch really did admit its own trigger was a liability and spent real money fixing it. Every one of those things is true and documented. None of it was manufactured for a sales page. It came from armorers, patent filings, and federal contracts. The kind of sources this channel exists to separate from mythology. The lie was always in the wrong question. Owners kept asking whether the USP was tough enough. It was never in doubt. The viewer who carries an HK USP needs to ask whether the premium they paid for over-engineering actually bought them something, or whether they paid for the feeling of extra margin that they will never actually need. The dense, layered give of that recoil buffer is not romance. It is evidence of a stress test almost nobody in this audience will ever run. That does not make the gun dishonest. It makes the number irrelevant to what most owners actually do with it. That gap between what the platform can survive and what its owner will ever need has always been the real story here. Long before this video gave it a name, the USP never lied about what it is. The lie was always in what owners decided the numbers meant. Buy it because you respect what it survived. Just do not tell yourself you needed it to. The H&K USP earned every fact in this video honestly, through federal trials, patent filings, and a manufacturer willing to correct its own mistakes. What it never earned was the myth that grew up around those facts, the idea that surviving a laboratory proves something about surviving your life. Institutions adopted this gun because it fit what they already needed, flaws included, not because it was flawless. Serious people trust boring things. Which part of the USP legend do you think you actually verified yourself? And which part did you just decide to believe because everyone else in the forum already had?